Wednesday afternoon to you. It's 4 o'clock in time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. Hope you're having a good afternoon. So the Browns went through joint practice early this morning with the Panthers in Carolina. Before the joint practice, Kevin Stefanski talked about the plans for quarterback against Panthers Friday night in the preseason opener.
On the game itself, we got game Friday night coming up. We'll rest some starters. Some players will play, obviously holding out some guys due to injury, as you know. And then we'll play Shedeur at quarterback. We just signed Snoop Huntley, as you guys saw. We'll get Snoop back up to speed quickly. He's been in a couple different offenses since we last saw him, so he's doing a great job of working at it. But it's a great opportunity for all of our young players in that football game. But with that, I'll take any questions. We're going to work through it, Tony. I mean, Snoop just got here yesterday, so I just want to see how he's doing with the terminology and all those type of things.
Is there any chance that anybody other than those two
No.
play?
Yeah, at quarterback?
At quarterback?
No.
Again, Kevin Stefanski alluding to the fact that Shedeur Sanders would be the starting quarterback for the preseason opener, but he did say they're working through it. ESPN's national NFL reporter Jeff Darlington on Shedeur Sanders with the thought that he's going to be the starting quarterback in the preseason opener.
This is important. It does come with context. Kenny Pickett and Dylan Gabriel both dealing with hamstring issues. They're not putting Joe Flacco in there, who is their projected week 1 starter. So they are down to basically saying, like, all right, Shedeur, here's your shot. And this is exactly what you need. I mean, anytime you talk about a 5th-round pick, forget about the name attached to him. He's going to have to look for these situations where maybe a couple guys are down right now and he has his chance to step up. And then if he does well, there's no looking back. That being said, he is getting this first chance. This is a chance to shine, ultimately, because those two guys right now who are ahead of him on the depth chart, the first depth chart, they are dealing with hamstring issues.
And as we heard earlier, they won't play, but Shedeur Sanders was always going to get the opportunity to play in the first preseason game. He's just going to get more opportunity to play in it. Joe Flacco will not play in Friday's preseason game. Did get some additional reps in the joint practice today. Talked about getting a few more reps after that joint practice.
I'm not trying to look into that too much. I can say that when you get a little bit, it's still not like, okay, I went from 3 reps here, 3 reps there, to a little bit more. Not like a ton more, but a little bit more. I mean, just that little bit. You know, you can start to feel like yourself getting a groove, and you calm down a little bit. It's just human nature, like when you're getting 2 reps, 3 reps, to like, oh, this has to be perfect. And when you feel that way, you're not going to be as good. So to be able to like relax a little bit, let it loose, and like get a little bit more, it just feels right. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to look into what it means, but it definitely feels good to be out there.
Is it difficult not to rush that process? I mean, I know Kevin and Tommy have talked about being process-driven. You talked sort of about being process-driven. How difficult is it not to rush, not to, kind of get out over your skis and try to rush?
I'm not worried one bit, man. I'm just out here enjoying it and doing the best I can every single day, trying to show these guys that, man, I can do it. You should have confidence in me. When I talk to my wife at night, maybe she's not as patient.
We'll have plenty more about the Browns quarterback position coming up a little bit later. Mike Florio from NBC Sports Pro Football Talk with how he thinks the Browns are handling this quarterback situation.
A normal functioning team would have gotten Pickett off the roster before camp opened. A normal team would have done that. But he's an asset, and we're going to play this chess match. Chief Strategy Officer Paul DePodesta has an idea as to how we can come up with a trade, and we're going to keep 4 quarterbacks around into week 1, even though it's probably unprecedented and idiotic to do because you've got 53 spots finite on your roster, and you're going to burn 4 of them on quarterbacks. That's the Browns. It's impossible to predict what they're going to do. You almost have to say, what would the Browns do to predict what the Browns are going to do? Because a normal team wouldn't do it. The Browns would. So whatever we think the Browns will do is what the Browns will do. So I think it's going to be Flacco. I think it's going to be Gabriel. I think it's going to be Shedeur. And then we see what happens from there. And in comes Deshaun Watson with his clean bill of health in week 6. And then they'll have somebody on the practice squad, and maybe Tyler Huntley on the practice squad, because somebody else, they may try to trade Pickett for a 6th-round pick or something, and then Huntley ends up being on the practice squad.
Again, they're trying to find a quarterback. So if you have more of them in, you have a better chance of finding a quarterback. All that other stuff, that's what happens when you haven't had a quarterback in a number of years and you won 3 games last year. Panthers head coach Dave Canales, what he saw from the Panthers offense going against the Browns defense in the joint practice this morning.
I think the 7-on-7 period, they weren't on the same page a couple times. And so there's something that we can kind of work through. But, I just loved, the bounce back plays. The Browns are pros too. They made some plays out there, and just a highlight to see that front. It's a pretty good front, adding Mason Graham inside, of course. Myles Garrett was out there. And so just loved the physical style play that was happening. But Bryce was able to find some opportunities down the field. And we looked a little leggy. We got after it yesterday. I'll be honest. We looked a little leggy at first, but the guys kind of got going in the practice. And, of course, just competition brings out the best in the guys.
Alex Zietlow, Panthers beat reporter for the Charlotte Observer, will join us to tell us what he saw, and he was focusing in on the Panthers offense, Browns defense. We'll get to that in just a minute. Now, Guardians trying to get the 3-game sweep of the Mets in New York. Gavin Williams on the mound against David Peterson for the Mets. And the Guardians offense got things rolling early. 2nd inning, David Fry to left center, and that one's going to clear the wall. Solo home run to give the Guardians an early 1-0 lead. 3rd inning, man on, Angel Martinez, 2-run homer to left to make it 3-0 Guardians. Now 4-0 Guardians. Gavin Williams had a no-hitter going, and take a look at this. Gets the glove on it, runs after it, gets the out. A nice play by Williams to keep the no-hitter going. 1 out in the 9th, still a no-hitter until Juan Soto makes it not a no-hitter and not a shutout. It is a solo home run to center field. The Guardians still get the sweep. You see Gavin Williams, 8 1/3 of no-hit ball. But the Guardians do get the win and the sweep. 4-1 is the final. Guardians have an off day tomorrow before opening up a 3-game series against Chicago against the White Sox. Tanner Bobby scheduled to get the start against former Indian Aaron Savali. Guardians just 1 game behind the Yankees for that 3rd and final wild card spot. Yankees playing a late afternoon game, so we'll see how that shakes out. Time for us to take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, Alex Zietlow, Charlotte Observer, Panthers beat reporter, talking about the joint practice with the Browns and the Panthers. Stay with us.
You got so much to do, it's got you feeling blue. Put a little play in your day, 'cause it's fun all over the state. So come on, great games await for you and me. The Ohio Lottery. Put a little play in your day. Put a little play in your day.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Browns joint practice earlier this morning in Charlotte with the Carolina Panthers. Not allowed to show team or 7-on-7s, but you get the idea here as Browns quarterbacks warming up. Tyler Huntley was in Carolina getting ready for Friday. DeJuan Jones, left tackle in the offensive-defensive line drills, looking pretty good. This one needs a little bit of work. If you're Shedeur Sanders, you don't like seeing that with the offensive line getting beat. A nice job by McMillan, the rookie, with a catch in the 7-on-7s. There's Jamari Thrash from Dylan Gabriel for the touchdown. And then Kenny Pickett, he finds Jerry Jeudy for another touchdown. Let's welcome in Alex Zietlow. He is Panthers beat reporter for the Charlotte Observer. Was out at the joint practice. Alex, thanks so much for taking this time. Now, I know you were paying attention a lot to Panthers offense, Browns defense. What did you see? Some of the takeaways from what you were watching?
The biggest takeaway that I found was the connection between Bryce Young and Teteroa McMillan was alive and strong. Obviously, Teteroa was the number 8 pick in this past April's NFL draft. He and Bryce have been building chemistry all off season, and that's really been the primary focus of this offense, really, beyond trying to figure out everything else and really elevating that offense and sustaining it from how good it was at the end of 2024. They had a lot of good connections. Like I said, Bryce also found Jalen Coker a couple times, who is like the fourth or fifth receiver on this depth chart. But the Browns did have a couple really good pass breakups. It was pretty, for my eyes, it was pretty even when it comes to how the Panthers offense and the Browns defense stacked up. One guy in coverage for the Browns that I thought was quite impressive was cornerback Chigozie Anusium. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. He had a lot of responsibilities covering Teteroa, and he did a pretty good job. Held up his side of the ball pretty well.
What about the defensive line? How did the Panthers O-line do against the Browns D-line? That's got to be a strength if the Browns are going to do what they want to do this year.
Yeah, one of the strengths of Bryce Young is his ability to be creative and extend plays. For my eyes, Bryce didn't have to deal with a ton of pressure. I don't remember the Browns notching a sack on him. Of course, it's difficult when it's difficult to determine these things because based on the reporter's angle on the sidelines, sometimes there is a called sack that they just don't immediately call because you're not allowed to actually hit the quarterback in these situations. But Bryce was doing a lot. He was moving around a lot. He even had to scramble a couple of times, one of which yielded a touchdown. But I don't think that the Browns should be too concerned about today's defensive line performance because they were pretty good. And particularly in the run game, Panthers' run game didn't look great. All of their splash plays really were through the air.
The other guy that they have 2 high draft picks on that defense. You've got Mason Graham, who a lot of Browns fans wanted. They wanted Travis Hunter, and they trade back and take Mason Graham, and then Schlesinger, the middle linebacker. So the middle of that. Schlesinger has flashed in camp. Did you see much from the middle linebacker?
I didn't see him make any plays in particular. Of course, I wasn't studying him as closely as probably your colleagues were. But you mentioned Mason Graham. He actually got into the middle and had a really couple nice pushes up the interior defensive line. And this is a guy that Panthers fans know quite well. In fact, there is a sentiment floating out there that if Mason Graham was available at 8, the Panthers either would have taken him or had a lot of opportunities to make moves, whether that be trading back or whatever. So Mason Graham is an interesting sliding doors moment. Of course, now the Panthers have Teteroa, the Browns have Mason Graham, so it is what it is. But seeing him was interesting today.
What are the plans? First preseason game. How are the Panthers approaching it? Starter's going to play? Is it what have you been told by Dave Canales, head coach, relative to their plans?
The Panthers are going to play their starters. That includes quarterback Bryce Young, and that also includes many offensive starters and many defensive starters. It's unclear if they're going to play the running backs. Obviously, the running backs take a lot of hits during the regular season, so I would imagine that Chuba Hubbard, the starting running back, doesn't get a lot or doesn't play on Friday. I would find it difficult to imagine that Rico Dowdle, the number 2 running back, gets a lot of play. But I do imagine Trevor Etienne playing, who is a 4th-round draft pick for the Panthers. On the defensive side of the ball, however, the Browns' offense will be going up against a Panthers defense without their 2 best players. The first is Derek Brown. Derek Brown was a Pro Bowler in 2023, defensive lineman. He is coming off of a season where he only played 1 game because of a knee injury. Now, interestingly, the knee is fine, but he's suffering like a rib and oblique injury this training camp. So he's going to be mostly sidelined for the preseason and won't play on Friday, according to Canales. And also Pro Bowl cornerback J.C. Horn will also not play on Friday. He was expected to play, but actually coming into training camp today, like literally on his way to work, he got into a car accident and had to get a couple stitches in his thumb area. So he's not going to play on Friday either, which if you're Browns fans, that does give you the opportunity to see, okay, here's what we got in Shedeur Sanders, like without the Panthers' two best players on defense.
Who are some guys on defense that have played well in camp that you guys have been impressed with the Panthers?
Yeah. One guy that immediately springs to mind is the Panthers' inside linebacker, Trevin Wallace. I imagine that his name is going to be called a lot on Friday. Trevin is a third-round pick from 2024, and he is this really athletic, really big, really fast linebacker who is kind of getting thrown into the deep end because the other inside linebacker for the Panthers, who they were really counting on, Josie Jewell, actually got released by the team at the beginning of training camp because he is still suffering from concussion-like symptoms from a concussion that happened in week 16 of 2024. So, yeah, this inside linebacker crew for the Panthers is pretty young and pretty light on depth. In fact, actually, now that I'm talking about it, the third string inside linebacker got hurt today for the Panthers. So you're going to hear a lot from Trevin Wallace. You're going to hear a lot from the other inside linebacker in Christian Rosemoon, because the Panthers run this 4-3 scheme, or excuse me, a 3-4 scheme that uses two inside linebackers. So you're going to hear a lot from Trevin Wallace, Christian Rosemoon, and then the other big guy that Browns fans should probably know is Mike Jackson, the other big cornerback opposite of J.C. Horn.
All right, before I let you go, how has Bryce Young performed as a whole? You said he was pretty good today, especially with McMillan. How has he looked in training camp? And I know he was trending the right direction late last year. Has that continued? Have you seen the continued growth?
Yeah, that's mostly continued. Bryce Young is among the maybe I shouldn't be this authoritative when I say this, but for my eyes, he's among the streakiest quarterbacks of the last year, really, and of this training camp. It just seems like when he gets it going, he can really be quite unbelievable, and he can string together completions, and he can be this creative guy who is just it's almost like he's a different player, honestly, when he gets a couple of completions under his belt and that confidence is up afterward. But he does struggle to get that momentum going sometimes, and you've seen that this training camp. The 2 times the Panthers have had, or the 3 times now the Panthers have had pads on, he's played really, really well, and that continued today. He had a really sharp day, even if the receivers weren't coming down with the ball. Head coach Dave Canales was really pleased with this third-year quarterback. I just think that he's really streaky, and the next step is going to be consistently being a starting quarterback for 18 weeks. And if he can do that, then he can take a further step of justifying his #1 overall pick selection in 2023. Because now the goal is to prove that he is a starting quarterback for 18 weeks. That's the goal. And through training camp, he's done his thing so far.
Alex Zietlow, thanks so much. Appreciate you joining us. Thanks so much for time on the inside. Appreciate it, Alex.
Thanks so much for having me on.
Alex Zietlow, he is the Panthers beat reporter for the Charlotte Observer, telling us what went on with those joint practices between the Browns and the Panthers, what to look forward to in the preseason game. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We continue talking Browns. Jacob Roach from the Orange and Brown Report straight ahead. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Try C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Shedeur Sanders likely to get his first start against the Panthers Friday night in the first preseason game. Former NFL defensive lineman Marcus Spears with what the game can mean to Shedeur Sanders.
This is the opportunity that he has now to be fully in command of an offense. And this is critical. Like if we see a step up, if he starts getting one step above his reps that he's been getting, if his positional value moves up, it'll be based on how he performs in this preseason game. It may be a blessing in disguise for Shedeur Sanders, who needs to have the football so he can show people what he is and what he can be for this franchise. I think this is a bigger deal than just starting a preseason game for a fifth-round pick. Not because it's Shedeur Sanders, but because we don't know what the two guys that are dealing with the hamstrings are either. This is not clear-cut about who the backup will be for all intents and purposes. You would think Kenny Pickett because of the experience, but this is a vital situation that Shedeur has and almost an opportunity for him to move up in that depth chart just by default based on the performance in a Week 1 preseason game.
Talking about Jacob Roach from the Orange and Brown Report, Barking Browns podcast. Jacob, that's, and I say presumed starter because Kevin Stefanski danced around the question in his media availability today. You would think he's going to be the starter because Huntley, he's been here 24 hours almost. But you know what? It's an opportunity for Shedeur. And yeah, if he goes out and plays well, he could move up the depth chart. Just remember, a lot of this is going to be kind of vanilla, not real fancy, but you got to start somewhere, and this is where Shedeur's starting.
Yeah, and one thing that I think I'm really going to be focused on when I'm watching Shedeur Sanders on Friday is some of the weaknesses or knocks that I had against him. Like, coming out of college, I had concerns about, like, holding onto the ball too much. He likes to drift back in the pocket and throw off his back foot. And from all reports and all accounts from people at camp, some of those things have been issues, but some of them have been cleaned up a little bit. So I want to see, is he taking steps forward? Like, this is his opportunity to show, like, I've been taking coaching. I've, done everything they're asked of me, and I'm trying to get better every day. He's said and done all the right things since he's been here. Like, there's people out there doubting if he's getting sabotaged or whatever thing, but he doesn't. All I know is that Shedeur Sanders believes that, like, hey, what I need to do is keep my head down and work. So I'm very interested. It doesn't mean a ton. Like you said, it's going to be very vanilla. You're not going to run what you're going to run Week 1 against the Bengals. But he's got the opportunity to go out there and show, hey, in a game setting, I can command a huddle. Like, they talk about Dillon Gabriel being ahead in the mental aspect of it. Well, here's his opportunity to say, hey, I'm catching up. I can operate this offense. I can communicate, make sure everybody's in the right places. I can read the defense. I'm making sure I get rid of the ball a little bit quicker than I did in college, and to just show that he is making progress, because when there's an injury and that opportunity's there, you've got to seize every opportunity you get, and I'm very excited to see if he can do that.
Yeah, I'm with you, and it's like this. You can only take advantage of the opportunities that are given to you. Right now, it's a preseason game. The game will probably be a little bit faster than your typical college game. Won't be heavy, but go and succeed here and show that you're kind of a gamer, and then you kind of go from there. After the joint practice today, quarterback Joe Flacco talking about some of the penalties and kind of how that's been a point of emphasis throughout training camp.
I think it's been a point of emphasis for us, like this camp, pre-snap penalties. Like sometimes the stuff during the snap, like when you're playing, it's the pre-snap ones is the one that we can control. It's all mental, and I think we did have some of those today. And like I said, it's been a point of emphasis for us throughout the whole camp. So to come out here and get against another team where maybe you're a little bit more revved up, I think that showed today. So we need to, you just need to refine a little bit, and this is probably a good environment for that, because it allows you to realize, like, man, maybe I went a little overboard, and it allows you to kind of, the next time you're faced with that, to relax a little bit more and just go play your game. I think it's been something that we've been constantly on. Like there's been days where we've been really good, and there's been days where we've not been good enough. I definitely think today was a little bit more so, and I think that's natural, but it's very controllable, so you don't want to see it.
Been a problem the last couple of years. So if it's a problem, first thing is you got to identify it. You got to make sure they're aware of it. They're aware of it. Now it's up to the players to not do it. But I play that to lead into your article just about Tommy Rees, kind of saying how they're focusing on fundamentals and processes. Well, a little bit of an X mark by that, with the joint practice.
Yeah. Tommy Rees talked about, at the beginning of camp, you're really focused on installing and kind of getting through the process and being like, okay, this is who we want to be, and getting everything out on there. But fundamentals, I think there were so many fundamental flaws last year, and a lot of that leads to penalties. Like you're holding somebody because your hand placement is not in the right place, or you whiff on a block and then you react in such a way where you grab a hold of somebody and jerk them down, or you're nervous about who you're lined up against, so you false start. I mean, they were total drive killers last year. I mean, this was not an offense that was super high powered that could afford to go backwards. And right now, at least on paper, this one isn't either, just like it was last year. And he really talked about an emphasis on the fundamentals and the process, and just getting from the call from the sidelines to the huddle and then to the rest, and making it all happen, getting everybody lined up in the right spot and stuff. And yeah, the pre-snap penalties are totally unavoidable. Like, I understand sometimes holding and things like that, your fundamentals lapse, but you have got to be on the same page, and you've got to understand what the snap count is, and you need to understand what kind of motion you can do, what kind of motion you can't. You have got to be a fundamentally sound team, or you're going to shoot yourself in the foot, which is what they did offensively all year last year. So yeah, there's a little bit of struggles in the joint practice early in training camp. That's kind of to be expected, but I'm very happy that they're at least putting an emphasis on it and trying to fix it. We'll see if they're actually able to do it, but it's good that they are very aware and focused on it.
All right, so before today's practice, Kevin Stefanski talked about how they're approaching preseason games, being the Browns, especially Friday's game against Panthers.
Every team is different. Every coach is different. And you're trying to, as you put your preseason plan together, you're trying to do what you think is best for your football team. Obviously, this is a first for me, having a practice versus another team in week one of the preseason. We haven't done that. So there are different reasons we wanted to try that. We've done a variety of things this offseason and this training camp a little bit different, all in an effort to get your football team ready for a week one, 17-plus season. But it's really so incumbent on the coaches at your respective team to know what your team needs to get ready for the season.
Do you know wide receivers-wise who will play, who won't play? Is it Jerry won't and mostly everybody else will?
I'm not going to go by position, but I'll give you this one because Jerry and Ced won't play.
So there you have it. Cedric Tillman, Jerry Jeudy will not play against the Panthers, and that's going to open up things for guys. And I know you've written an article, and this guy's going to get an opportunity. Gage Laverde, take us through the article and what you've seen from him.
Yeah, he is been the most impressive. There's several UDFAs on this team, Luke Florio being another one, that have the opportunity. There's a lot of unproven wide receivers on here. But with Gage Laverde, he brings a speed element that they have been missing. He's a 4.4 guy, 4.45 he ran. He's really creative after the catch. Didn't do a ton of production last year in the SEC when he was with South Carolina, but prior to that, he was at Miami, Ohio, and then he was at the FCS level before that, and he was a pretty consistent performer. When he made his first jump from the FCS to the FBS at Miami, Ohio, his second game, he had 273 yards and 3 touchdowns. He's a total outlier. I understand he's 5'8", 173 pounds. He's very small. But if you're talking about a guy that's explosive, he separates really well because he's a good route runner, and he's creative after the catch. It feels like, to me, every time there is a big chunk play in Browns training camp practice so far, Laverde has been on the other side of that. Like he is there, and I know it's going to be crazy for him at that size to be productive, but he has a chance as a slot receiver, and we know how much they value returning. He did a ton of kick returning in college prior to being at South Carolina. Didn't really do much of it last year, but yeah, super explosive, really good vertical speed, creative after the catch, something that is a quarterback's best friend, a guy that can create extra yardage. And we know Kevin Stefanski can scheme up open guys. And then if you got an open guy who's able to create after the catch, he's the one that I'm watching the most. Luke Floria and Cade McDonald are there as well. But this is a wide open wide receiver room. And with Tillman and Judy not playing the most, and Deontay Johnson obviously has some experience, but those are the top two guys in my mind. So you've got it wide open, and all these guys that are fighting for a couple of spots have got a chance, and LeVarden's my favorite.
Jacob Roach from the Orange and Brown Report and the Barking Browns podcast. Now going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll talk a little defense. Plus, we'll look ahead to Friday's preseason game. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to Go Forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Jacob Roach from the Orange and Brown Report and Barking Browns podcast. Browns wrapped up joint practice today with the Carolina Panthers. Myles Garrett, after that practice, with his thoughts on how things are going in training camp as well as how things went today in the joint practice.
It wasn't perfect as far as, it being clean, but the guys getting after it, competing, stepping up to the challenge. It's the first time getting in front of another team. I like where our heads were at. I like how well we handled the intensity and tried to raise it to our own. And it was a good step forward in trying to create a standard. I like how the standard has continued to increase, every single day. Guys are really showing an attention to detail and a discipline that I don't feel was there all the time last year. And it's a heightened awareness, heightened urgency right now, and want to continue to see that through the rest of the year.
Yeah, and again, Jacob, it's kind of interesting, and we heard last segment where Kevin Stefanski alluded to it. It's joint practice basically week one. So some of the sloppiness, if it wasn't a recurring thing the last couple of years, I'd be a little more forgiving of it, but it's like, get this fixed.
Yeah, for sure. You never want that to be like the first leading headline that comes out of a joint practice, like, oh, hey, there's a lot of sloppiness. But one thing that I really do like that he's talking about there, and he's now like the 10th player that's talked about it, is heightening the standard, heightening the intensity, how this is a different process from this coaching staff than what we've seen in previous years. He talked about it. He was like, that stuff wasn't all there last year. And it's like, yeah, and that was very evident by the product they put on the field. But, we've got to get it fixed. It sounds like they're trying to do some things differently to try to get it fixed. I'll be very interested to see the steps forward they take next week when they go against an even tougher joint practices with 2 days against the defending Super Bowl champions. But yeah, no, I don't like to see a lot of, pre-snap penalties after what last year was. But the one thing that he did point out is like heighten the intensity and the standard and things like that. We've seen a bunch of players say that, and it seems that has been a different approach. So you're at least a little bit happy in the sense like, hey, they're not trying to do exactly the same thing that got him 3-14. They're trying to raise it and do something better.
So linebacking core took a couple of hits. JOK out for the year. Jordan Hicks retires. I know you wrote an article about Mahmoud Diabate. Intrigued by him. Undrafted free agent. They put him on the field. You wanted to see more of him on the field. Take us kind of through the article that you wrote about Diabate.
Yeah, Diabate is one of those, we talk every year, undrafted free agents, there's always some intriguing guys that slip through the corners for one reason or another. He was a guy that had played some pass rusher. They'd used him as a blitzer, and then he kind of switched off ball linebacker. So he didn't have a ton of experience. He ends up going undrafted. And all he has done since he's come to Cleveland is work his tail off. And Jim Schwartz has praised him. And when you've got a defensive coordinator with the track record that Jim Schwartz has, him praising a player really means something. And he got his chance last year, and there were some struggles down the stretch a little bit in coverage and stuff, but he's a crazy good athlete with a lot of range. I think you can kind of see it early in camp where he's kind of taking that next step forward. They asked him about it, about they were tackling to the ground for the first time since Kevin Stefanski's been the head coach. And that was something he kind of lit up about. Like, he's all about physicality and dictating things to the offense, bringing the fight and to the opposing team instead of, being an aggressive, not reactive defense, which is aligned perfectly with what Jim Schwartz wants to do. And having him and potentially Carson Schlesinger, two incredible athletes at the position, if he can take a step forward and be a little bit better in coverage, he's got the skills to be more consistent. I think he was a good run defender overall, but yeah, he just really talked about, making the most out of his opportunities. And it's just a guy that's continuing to work every day. And he's focused, as he said, one day at a time and getting better at every day. And I'm really excited to see what he does with an increased role here in 25.
What have you thought about Schlesinger? With what I've seen, he looks pretty good.
He looks the part. That's the first thing. When you physically see him in person, you're like, that is an NFL linebacker. I don't know if he added weight since the draft, but see what I watched him on tape, and then when I saw him personally a couple of weeks ago in camp, I was like, that guy looks a lot bigger. And he doesn't look like a rookie. Like, how many rookies come in as a middle linebacker and they get the green dot right away? And I understand part of that's because JOK is out and then Jordan Hicks retires. But he's taken the green dot responsibility and ran with it. He's calling the defensive plays. And one thing that I always think is something important to point out when you're talking about football IQ and understanding how to call plays is if you're getting your teammates aligned correctly. Like, can you communicate to them exactly what the coach is communicating to you? And there hasn't seemed to have been them issues. And he is all over the place. The range and the speed is insane. He covers a lot of ground. He decided the first day of hitting, he wanted to welcome Dylan Sampson to the NFL as if he was not also a rookie, which is kind of funny, but he lit Dylan Sampson up really early in that practice. He has done everything right to this point. I'm very excited to actually see him in a game setting, but he's got all the physical tools. The IQ is there. They trust him already as a leader. And I think he is, every test they have thrown his way, I think he's hit it out of the park so far. So I'm really excited to see if that carries over into actual games.
So, first preseason game Friday. What are you paying attention to, knowing that most of the starters, there will be some, but most of the starters are not going to play?
One thing that I'm really interested in is the offensive line depth, because there's been some questions about that in the past, and there's some questions about the age of the offensive line, specifically on the interior and on the right. Well, I guess everywhere but left tackle are guys that are getting a little bit older in an offensive line that struggled, and including the left tackle with DeJuan Jones. I don't know if he'll get to play or what, if any of those starters will get to play, but Zach Zenner's not going to be there. He didn't make the trip down to Carolina. So you want to see a guy like Javion Cohen. Lorenzo Thompson, a UDFA from last year who played tackle, has been playing a lot of guard. I want to see if he can make that transition, because he's got a lot of nice physical tools, and it really intrigued me last year, and they kind of moved him inside. Barton has been playing pretty good on the right side as the backup right tackle. So I just want to see, hey, is that offensive line depth, is it there? Do you feel comfortable? Because I personally think with like Tevin Jenkins and Zach Zenner, who's now not there, I thought he was going to take a step forward, but he won't be here this week. I just want to see, how's that offensive depth looking, because I am concerned potentially about the health of the starting offensive line. And then I want to look at the corner depth. After losing Martin Emerson, there's some questions behind Greg Newsome, who's already been banged up a little bit. So those two positions I want to watch. Of course, Shedeur Sanders is the number one thing. I want to see how he handles that. But to answer it on a different level, it's the offensive line depth and the corner depth that I'm most intrigued to see.
Is the offensive line, other than quarterback, you think the biggest thing that they got to get an answer to in the preseason?
Yeah, I do, because if they're going to win this year, if they're going to be competitive and try to push for a playoff spot, it's going to be based on really good hard-nosed defense and running the football. So that offensive line, they've got to feel good about it, run blocking, but also pass protecting for whoever the quarterback is. I think it's kind of the linchpin, because I think they have some guys that can play well at wide receiver, and Harold Fannin is kind of a pseudo wide receiver. Him and David Njoku supplement it. So I think they have some weapons, and I like Jerome Ford, and I really like Dylan Sampson. But if this offensive line struggles to the level that it was last year, it's going to be hard for them to overcome that. So those are the biggest questions I have, because I think you've got enough in the wide receiver room. As some people want to rank it the worst in the NFL, I'm not necessarily sure it's there, but there is a lot of projection in that room, especially when you count, a rookie tight end supplementing that. But them getting back to the dominance at an offensive line will go a long way in them being able to score enough points to win.
Jacob Roach from the Orange and Brown Report and the Barking Browns podcast. Is always great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Jacob.
Thanks, guys.
Jacob Roach, make sure you check him out. Writes for the Orange and Brown Report. You can also catch him on the Barking Browns podcast. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We continue talking Browns. Damon Wolfe from In Motion Football straight ahead. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. You've heard us talk about it a couple times. Browns wrapped up a joint practice with Panthers this morning. Longtime Browns beat reporter Tony Grossi, what he saw from the joint practice in Carolina.
Sloppy is the word for it, with all those flags. I mean, a couple of individuals look good, like I said, Flacco and Judy. They didn't throw an interception, but there were also several TBUs by the Panthers on the Browns offense. So I would say overall Carolina won this day. I don't know how much to put into this practice, but Carolina definitely had more winning plays, let's say, than the Browns.
For that, let's welcome in Damon Wolfe from In Motion Football. And Damon, Tony was focused on the offense of the Browns versus the defense of the Panthers. Earlier in the show, we kind of heard the defense of the Browns, the offense of the Panthers. Sounds like it was pretty even, and you don't want to read too much into it. The one thing is, you don't want to hear sloppy. I guess it's week one, but sloppy is bad. We've seen sloppy for 2 years.
Yeah, absolutely, Dave. I think that the Browns are a little bit of disadvantage being a traveling team in this circumstance, going down there for one day. Not familiar with the field, the facilities, all that kind of stuff. So the Panthers, I would say, would have a slight advantage, with their familiarity with the practice field and all that. But that being said, I think that a little bit of sloppiness is to be expected. The first time going up against another unit that's not your own defense that you've been seeing every day. They run a different style front than what the Browns operate from on defense. And the Panthers, I think, are an emerging team this season and will be better than they've been in the past. And, I think they're definitely going to be tougher than most people think.
So Kevin Stefanski did make it official earlier today. Joe Flacco, Dylan Gabriel, Kenny Pickett, all of them not playing in the preseason game Friday against the Panthers, the opener. Former NFL quarterback Chris Sims with his thoughts on Kenny Pickett and the Browns.
I don't think it's crazy that they brought Kenny Pickett in and tried to make him the guy. I mean, he's still young. He's still growing as a player. I mean, we've talked about Pittsburgh. I know it wasn't the best, but like we said, there wasn't exactly the greatest support system in the world there for him to make it happen either. I mean, there's a lot of issues there. So I will defend him in that and going, it wasn't the best scenario. I'm not in love with what he does or never was. But
I'm thinking that is there a different guy that was my co-host
I'm just trying to be
2022
realistic.
before the draft?
I'm just trying to be realistic to putting myself in a GM shoes or Cleveland shoes to go, wait, he did do some good things. They got him to the verge of the playoffs and stuff like that to where I can understand the team going, hey, let's acquire him. Let's sign him. Maybe he can be something.
What does he do well? What does he do well?
He really, there's nothing special I'm going to say he does well, but he's not horrible at anything either. I mean, he's a good athlete. He makes good decisions. He's got a good arm. He's pretty accurate. He's just not going to be the guy that carries your football team. But maybe he can grow into that. Maybe he didn't have the support system to do that. All I'm saying is that's where I'll justify for Cleveland a little bit.
Damon, it's unfortunate for Kenny Pickett that, he's missed time when he has missed it, because now there's an opportunity for Shedeur Sanders and Dillon Gabriel to kind of make up some ground.
Yeah, for sure. I wasn't the biggest fan of the move of bringing in Kenny Pickett when they did. With that being said, though, I agree with a lot of what Sims is, communicating there. I think that if any system is right for Pickett, it would be pairing him up with Stefanski, getting him outside of the pocket and utilizing his mobility Kevin's always done a pretty good job of being able to scheme receivers open. So I think, when you look at that, you can certainly envision a scenario where, back when we had Baker Mayfield here with Stefanski, those kind of pass plays, big shots off of play action. I think that's what they're really trying to go for there with Pickett. And, it has been unfortunate that he has been out and we're not going to see as much of him. But I do think the Browns ultimately like somebody with a little bit more mobility than what Joe Flacco possesses.
Yeah, and the two things about Pickett, if you're looking, he's nondescript other than he's 15-10 as a starter, and he has, I think it's 6 fourth quarter comebacks. Other than that, those are the things that jump out about him that are positives. Let's talk a little bit about Shedeur Sanders. Where do you think he is in his development at this point? Clearly, he's making progress forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I was up there on Monday for practice, and it's obvious that they're still working with him, trying to get him more comfortable under center. I think all of his reps during the first 11-on-11 team sessions were from under center. And he fared pretty well, but it's still a work in progress. And I think that, that combined with everything pre-snap that they are trying to get him up to speed on and getting him more comfortable with, getting the play call into the huddle and getting guys lined up and all of that kind of stuff for the operation. I think they're really working hard at that. I think he's working really hard at that. And he is showing some progress, and he made some great throws as well as Flacco did during Monday's session. But he will stand in there, and he's trying to go downfield with the football and go through his progressions pretty quickly and get the ball down the field, which I certainly appreciate in his game. I just think that ultimately right now he's holding on to the football just a tick too long. And I think that is something that will naturally improve as he gets used to the speed of the NFL game. The Browns' defensive line was as advertised. They weren't giving the quarterbacks much time to throw at all. And they were in the backfield in a hurry. So I think that's good for him, and that will help speed up his clock as he goes and faces other teams. I'm looking forward to see what he can do on Friday night versus the Panthers.
Yeah, when I think of Shedeur Sanders, I think a guy that's at his best come game time. So let's see if we do see that. We'll see. Joe Flacco mentioned won't play in the preseason game against Panthers. He is healthy, one of the only quarterbacks other than the newly signed Tyler Huntley, who's completely healthy. Flacco asked what he wants to see from the team in this preseason.
You love to just come out here and go against teams and just gain confidence. You want to see guys, like, you want to be able to look in guys' eyes after your rack and, like, see them be excited. So I know that's not like a specific goal or anything, but when guys start to get excited about, like, what we could be, like, you can feel that. And that does matter. You know, good teams, they know how to win because they believe throughout the whole 60 minutes that they're going to win. So it would be really big if you could start to get some of that and you can see the belief in guys.
And Damon, I think he just explained why he's going to be the starting quarterback, because I think the team, his teammates, the guys that matter, the guys that are playing, believe in him. Let me ask you this. We've seen guys get banged up, hamstrings, sore shoulders. Would you play Joe Flacco in the preseason at all? I'm starting to lean towards not, if it were my decision. And I'm usually not that guy. Like, I think Deshaun Watson should have played in the preseason last year.
Right. Well, I'm kind of in the same boat as you in that regard. However, with Flacco, I do think that they probably should be careful, but I do think that they would want to see him at least for a couple series, maybe a quarter in the third preseason game after Philadelphia. If all goes, you know, according to the way that things appear to be headed, they would like to probably see him a little bit in that regard. And I think Flacco made a really great point there in regard to what he wants to see from the team over the course of the preseason. And I think just that confidence and that energy, especially on the offensive side of the ball, the defense kind of has a little bit more of that ingrained in them. But on offense, being able to, you know, have some confidence that you can go out there and move the football, that you can, you know, have some big plays happen, especially in the passing game. And if the receivers know that they're going to be involved and have some opportunities playing alongside with that quarterback, that'll do them wonders as far as their energy and their motivation. And that's something that was really lacking last season with Watson out there and the poor camp that the team had overall in the preseason. I mean, the energy in the preseason just wasn't there. And that was something that really jumped out and was a red flag to me. There was no sense of urgency. And I am really, you know, impressed by what the team seems to be doing in their approach this year to the preseason and training camp and really trying to ratchet up that intensity.
Damon Wolfe from In Motion Football and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll hear from Myles Garrett, Sports4CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us.
You got so much to do, it's got you feeling blue. Put a little play in your day, 'cause it's fun all over the state. So come on, great games wait for you and me, the Ohio Lottery. Put a little play in your day, put a little play in your day.
We continue talking Browns with Damon Wolfe from In Motion Football. So DeJuan Jones, can he be an effective left tackle, an effective tackle in the NFL? Big question that the Browns have to answer. If he can, they've got something. Myles Garrett today talked about what he's seen from Jones and how he's trying to help him prepare as they get ready for the season.
Continue to build his confidence. I know it can be difficult sometimes if I make a play or if I beat him, but just trying to coach him through some things that I see or what I'm doing, and continue to improve his technique and his fundamentals. And I think the main thing for him is confidence and being on the left side. Making sure that he knows he's capable of winning on that side and dominating on that side. It's just a matter of switching those fundamentals a little bit, and sticking with it. Sometimes I think he gets in his head a little bit, but I know he has the ability to go out there and dominate on the left side or the right side, whatever he's called to do.
Damon, if DeJuan Jones can be an above-average left tackle in the NFL, that solves a huge problem And you can go out and get your quarterback, your franchise quarterback, whomever that might be. You need the blindside protector for that quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. DeJuan Jones is certainly a freak of nature out there with his size, and he looks really good this year. He looked good the other day out of practice, and I saw a couple of individual clips today online where he seemed to do a really nice job and was pretty impressive with his hand strength and hand usage. I really am impressed by the way he's trending this year. And it's good to hear Miles actually talk about, how important Jones's confidence is. And to have Miles be aware of that is something that I think is pretty key, because Miles can certainly, have guys get down in their ability if he beats them every day. I wonder how much that really impacted Jed Wills over his tenure here, going up against Miles every day in practice. So that is something that I think, having that on his radar is pretty big. But also, Jones has got to be given, Miles has to be testing him every day and giving him his best at the same time. And, Jones hopefully is holding his own pretty well in those scenarios. And that can only make him better heading into the season.
All right, so Friday's preseason game. Expectations for it, what are you paying attention to?
Man, well, of course, I want to see what Shedeur Sanders has, under center, and continuing to work on the things that he's working on. I think, I know Judy and Tillman won't be playing, so I'm really interested to see what that second group of the wide receiver depth, what they're able to do. A couple of guys I'm really interested in is Gage Larvadain and Luke Floria. I want to see if those guys can continue to do what they've done on the field so far up in Berea in a game. And hopefully they've had a connection with Sanders so far. So I'm certainly watching that. Other than that, I think it's important. Obviously Mason Graham and Carson Schlesinger ought to get their first action, I would assume. I know that, all the starters aren't playing, but hopefully they will certainly play the rookies there and let them get a little bit of experience in. And I want to see what they do. Carolina will be playing their starters, and Carolina has some real talent at the skill positions. And they were really, really effective last year at running the football with Chuba Hubbard. And I expect that'll be a huge test for Mason Graham and Carson Schlesinger in the run game up front for a series or two. I'm certainly looking at that. And then I think the biggest thing is what are we going to do with the cornerback position, especially an outside corner. Martin Emerson has been tasked with, matching up against teams' bigger receivers like T. Higgins in Cincinnati. And of course, Pittsburgh now has DK Metcalf. Well, they'll be going up against T-Mac for the Carolina Panthers, who's a big, lanky wide receiver out on the boundary. So I want to see who the Browns place out there. Greg and Denzel are, smaller, compact cornerbacks. And, I would like to see somebody with some length in that cornerback room be able to go out there and put on a good showing.
All right, before I let you go, you have a Browns season preview that will be available for download free tomorrow, inmotion.football/Browns. So it's inmotion.football/Browns. Tell us what is in that preseason preview, the season preview.
Yeah, it's our 2025 Cleveland Browns season preview, and inside of it will be, interesting storylines, the biggest storylines for the Browns, position depth chart battles, positional breakdowns of each group. We'll have, some schedule information, some game previews. All of that stuff is inside of there. And of course, all of our work that we've done on the Browns in regard to the franchise valuation triangle and their scoring will be in there as well.
So again, it's Friday. I said tomorrow, so I'm a day ahead of myself. So Friday, it'll be available inmotion.football/Browns. Give us just a little teaser. What are some of the biggest position battles that you're paying attention to here?
Well, obviously, I want to see. It's not so much I think the starters are kind of lining up. I think that it's more so like for the depth positions overall. So I think whoever's going to be could possibly be a fourth tackle on the roster. I'm definitely interested in seeing that, and who can emerge there. Also on the interior offensive line. Whippler's pretty much lined up at center. Now we're faced with an issue with Zach Zinner possibly being out for some time. We're not exactly sure what's going on there. So who can step up and give them something on that interior offensive line for depth. And then the cornerback position, which we just talked about, I think are really, really important to have somebody behind Greg and Denzel who can step up and provide them with good performance on the football field.
Damon Wolfe, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Damon.
No problem, Dave. Thank you.
Damon Wolfe, make sure you check it out. The Browns season preview will be available to download Friday. inmotion.football/Browns. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.